Greetings, gun nuts, it's Ferrari Steve, and today I'm going to walk you through, step by step, a full, complete, detail strip, absolute, total disassembly of your Glock. Before we get going, let's do a quick safety check. Eject the magazine, lock the slide open, visually and manually inspect, and the gun is clear. So, why on earth would you ever want to take your Glock completely apart? I can think of 3 good reasons. Number 1, you're curious. You want to see all these pieces. You want to know what's in there. There's nothing wrong with it. I think that's a great reason to take your gun apart. I think the more you understand your firearm, the better shooter you're going to be, the better owner you're going to be, the better you're going to be able to maintain it and clean it. So just knowledge is power, right? That's why you're here on YouTube. So thanks for spending some time with me. Number 2, maybe you want to clean it. Glocks are notorious for really not needing that much maintenance, which is one of the reasons they're popular. But about once a year, I like to take it completely apart, take all the pieces out, throw it on my ultrasonic cleaner, strip off everything, and re-lube and kind of just start from scratch. And the third reason is maybe you're going to do some modifications like the 25-cent trigger job. So if you're here watching this video in preparation for doing a 25-cent trigger job, that's great. I'll show you how to get all the pieces out that you're going to need to access, and then I'll show you a little trick for really focusing in on the exact spots you're going to need to do that trigger job. So I'll put the link to the trigger job video, which I'm hopefully going to do today or tomorrow, and you can link to it from in here. But let's get going. First, what you're going to need: a Glock tool. Man, if you got a Glock and you don't have a Glock tool, really get your head examined, man. Come on, it's $5. Look how cool it looks, right? I mean, you can use it as, no, you can't use it as a weapon. You use it as a tool for taking your Glock apart. Now, some guys who are real purists, man, I'm only going to use my Glock tool. Yeah, well, I use a screwdriver, and you'll see where and why. So I have a little tiny flathead screwdriver. There are a few things that this just makes easier, so I keep it around. Finally, a block. You don't need a fancy block like this. If you've seen some of my other mod videos, I've used a roll of duct tape. You just need something to lift the gun up that when you poke the pins out, they don't get caught on your bench and not come out, right? You need to have it lifted up, and then you can punch it through. So let's get going. So first, field strip it, right? You can watch my separate field strip video if you want, but we've already checked. But still, it's just a good habit. Every time I'm about to pull the trigger on a dry fire, I just like to double check, make sure it's empty. So safe direction, pull the trigger, take it apart, pop out the spring, pop out the barrel, and there's our field strip. Now let's work on we're going to come back to the slide because there's some goodies in there we want to get out. But let's work on the frame. So here's where we need our block. Now, most Glocks will have 3 pins, 1, 2, 3, and I take them out in that order from top to bottom. If you've got an older Glock, maybe like an early Gen 2 Glock 17, you might not have this top pin. You only got 2 pins. Okay, so only take out 2 pins. Duh. I mean, why is it even an issue? All right, so let's take out these pins. This top pin is the locking block pin. It holds the locking block in, kind of obvious, right? So it just needs a little bit of pressure. Get your Glock tool, and you shouldn't really encounter a lot of resistance. It'll just slide right out. There we go. I'm going to move this over here. I like to put my pieces from left to right as I take them out. So when I reassemble, I just pick up and go right down the line. Kind of helps me remember where I am. Number 2, this is our trigger pin. This probably won't come out too easy. In fact, for the video's sake, I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't go right away. Ah, yes, it didn't. Good. All right, here's why. There's actually 2 little notches on that pin, and then really only one is being used to hold the slide stop lever here. But the 2 notches there, that way it doesn't matter which direction you put the pin in. But the trick is to kind of wiggle this slide stop lever as you're pressing the pin. So I like to kind of press up and away and back in kind of an oval motion, and that will get this pin out easy. Right? So I push, I'm getting a little resistance. If I lift this and kind of wiggle it in that little oval motion, out it comes. There's my pin. Here is what I was talking about. These little notches right here, that's where the slide stop lever, the hole in there, is being kind of captured in there and held in place, and that's what was kind of catching up. And third, the trigger housing pin right here holds your trigger housing in. That should be no problem at all. That should just poke out with absolutely no resistance whatsoever. Super easy. Now, if you've never taken the pins out, we may as well have a look at them. It's kind of cool. They're all different, meaning you can't put it in the wrong place, right? Here's your locking block pin, here's your trigger pin, and here's your trigger housing pin. You could technically reverse these 2, but this one's shorter, so you'd notice right away it's the wrong one. So kind of a cool design. I like that. I like that they're all different, meaning it's easy to kind of tell which one's which. All right, we're done with the block for good. You won't need it to reassemble, so put it aside. Now let's start taking bits out. Already, you've got your slide stop lever, right? That should just lift right out. There it is. And then let's work from the front to the back. So let's pull out, well, the locking block, right? It's right there. I like to put my Glock tool underneath and just give it a little bit of leverage, right? You can do it from either side and just lift up to where you've got enough room to grab it with your fingers and wiggle it out. Again, one of my principles on all gun maintenance, you shouldn't ever need to force anything. Just wiggle. And if it's not quite right, just wiggle from a different angle or try something else. Again, just like we got that slide stop lever out, don't force that pin. There's a trick. Wiggle it out. There's always a trick. Grab your Glock tool, depress this little leaf spring right here to take out your slide stop. Your slide lock. Press down on the leaf spring. Push through with your fingernail. Sometimes you can kind of just lift up and wiggle and it'll just slide right out. There it is. To get the spring out, this is one of the spots where I like to have the screwdriver. Don't reach in and just pry it up. The spring is kind of held into the frame. It's got a little 90-degree bend in it. So you don't want to bend back too much because you don't want to change the geometry of that spring. Just kind of get there and again wiggle and work it out gently and it'll come out. See, this is what is actually sliding down into the frame. And so there's your little leaf spring that holds your slide stop in there. Okay, let's grab our whole trigger assembly. Look at this. Just grab here from the ejector, pull straight up, whole thing comes out. We're not done with it yet, so we're going to stick it in front. Now the only thing left is the magazine catch. You don't have to take it out if you don't want, but hey, you paid for a full video, so we're going to do it. This is another spot where I think it's much easier to have a little screwdriver. So the magazine catch is held in place by a tall spring down here, and there's a little notch inside the magazine catch. So you've got to force that spring over and out. So you kind of get underneath. If this is the spring, you're kind of getting underneath it and pressing it up into where that notch is and pressing it out, and then the magazine catch will just slide right out. So look down in there. You should push the magazine catch on the backside so it doesn't push through while you're getting that spring out of that little hole, and then it'll push right out. Hard to see down in there with the light, but once you see it, it will totally make sense. All right, now your frame is completely empty. We can't take these bits out. They're kind of melted in. I don't recommend taking the spring out that's holding your magazine catch in place. Hey, you're more than halfway there, man. You're doing great. All right, let's look at our trigger assembly. Grab your trigger bar here, and we're going to lift this out of this back piece. So it's being held in here and with a little tab down here. So you kind of have to lift toward you and tilt the front away from you and rotate the back part toward you, and it'll kind of just rotate out like that, right? We'll do it again. Rotate and lift. It's easy as that. All right. Then there's a little spring right here. Just drop it down, and this little hole is holding on to that spring. So you're done with that. This is your connector. You should just be able to put a fingernail underneath there and lift it up and out, right? But if it doesn't come out that easy, let's say it's jammed in there, don't grab this end and pull. This has a little spring tension, and by design, it's not exactly 90 degrees, so it has a little flex. If you need to, you can put the screwdriver underneath, get it as close to the base as you can, and then just twist to get a lift on it, and then pull it out with your fingers. All right, there we go. So that's everything out of your frame. Let's work on your slide. So your slide has a few things that are come out. Obviously, you've got your striker or your firing pin. You've got the safety plunger. That's part of the trigger safety mechanism. You've got your extractor, and then you've got a little spring and plunger in there that's giving the spring action to your extractor. So here's how we do it. Grab your Glock tool, and you're looking at this a little plastic sleeve that goes around your striker, and it's under spring tension, and you'll see the spring in a minute. You're going to want to press that down to take that pressure off. Now, when you do that, you'll be able to slide this slide cover plate off with your thumb. So I stand it on the bench, get your Glock tool, put it in that spot, depress it down. Now don't just flip this slide cover plate off, because there's actually a spring that'll come flying out. So keep your thumb right there, and you'll hear it pop. You can release your tool, pull the little cover off, and then this is what would have, if you'd just popped that off, this had gone screaming up into the air. Ask me how I know. All right, put your cover plate right there, and now you can pull out. You can pull out either. Let's pull out the striker first. So here's your striker. We're not done with this though, so we put it right here in the middle. We're not done. And then this little plunger here. This plunger is what's giving the spring tension to your extractor. This is called, I think it's called the extractor depressor plunger. Let's see. Yep, the extractor depressor plunger and the extractor depressor plunger spring. So this depresses the extractor. When the extractor has a really good day and is feeling really good about itself, this tells it that it's fat and it gets depressed. So there you go. You can pop this off and take it apart even further. All right, more on the striker in a minute. Now, press down on your safety plunger right here. Boom. And then you should be able to just grab this with your fingers, and out comes the extractor. At this point, you can sometimes just shake that out. If it doesn't come out, just grab it. There we go. This little spring in your plunger might stay in, it might not. That's okay. We'll put it separate. Okay, we are almost done. Almost done. Some guys don't like to actually take it apart more than this because they think it's tricky. It's not. There's actually a cheat code, and I'll show it to you. So why they think it's tricky is because you've got these little tiny spring cups right here. What looks like this little ring around here is actually two pieces that there's a lip that sits inside the spring and then holds it against the front part of the striker. And they're like, I gotta pull that down and get that. There's a trick. Watch this. Look here in your slide. Right here, you'll see a little indent, right? A little notch that you may not have even noticed before. So normally your striker goes in like this, right? It sits like that. Instead, put it in backwards and line up this little tab on your striker where that notch is. Look at that. Fits in perfectly right there and gives you a stable surface so that all you have to do is grab this spring, pull down, grab one of the spring cups. The other one fell down on its own. That's what these little spring cups look like, right? Just like that. And then you can pull the spring right off, pull the striker out, pull it through the sleeve, and you are fully detail stripped. Everything out you would possibly need. At this point, you clean it, lube what you need to. Again, don't put a lot of lube on the springs, or any actually, probably. And you're ready to put it back together. So if you were just doing this out of curiosity, skip forward a little bit, because at this point, I'm going to show you where you want to mark it up. Grab your tactical Sharpie, and if you plan on doing a 25-cent trigger job, or even if you're just curious about where things are wearing and rubbing inside your gun, if you ever want to possibly improve the action, this is a really good thing to do. Start with your trigger bar. Color in, and I've already colored this in once, but I'll do it again. Right here, right, this part here. You won't actually see any rubbing inside, but you might see some rubbing on these outside edges because this sits in the gun like this and might rub against this part of the frame. So if it does, you'll know where. Definitely mark up top here on the trigger bar. This is what actually depresses up against where the safety plunger is. So that's definitely something you're going to feel. You're going to want to color in the top part of this cruciform, particularly this back tab, but I also sometimes see wear on the other parts of this cruciform. So color that in. Definitely color in this tab back here. You're going to see wear here for sure. And that's really all you need on your trigger bar. We had it there, didn't we? All right, let's grab, let's do it. We'll do it in order. Your striker. Color in this bottom tab here, just the front face of it though. You're not going to polish anything else, really. You should never polish anything else on your striker, just right there. Some guys like to do up here, I never really do. Even though this isn't technically part of the trigger, it is part of the action, so I'll color in this, the kind of the raised portions of your depressor here, of this plunger. Color those in because you will see some wear there. Definitely, where is it? Here's our safety plunger. Definitely color in the top of your safety plunger. You will see wear there, and so you're going to want to see, again, we're going to polish it anyway, but it's, again, just a good trick to get into coloring that in to see where the wear is happening. And on your connector, this front face, only about halfway down. It won't wear down here at all, but this top part, for sure, this is going to sit against here, and these two pieces are going to rub against each other. So coloring in here while you've got it apart in a detail strip is a good thing, just so you're kind of aware of where it's wearing. Even if you have an aftermarket one like this, which is pre-polished, it's just never a dumb idea to know more about what's happening inside your gun. If you want, you can kind of color in this top part of the locking block, kind of to see if it's wearing, where it's catching there, you know, just for fun. It's you know, not going to do any damage to put a little marker on there. All right, so I actually don't know how to get this gun back together, so the video's over, and you should probably go, no, I'm kidding. Of course we're going to put it back together. All right, so this is where you want to fast forward to if you don't care about marking it up, and let's just go in reverse order. So let's put our striker back together using that same little cheat code, right? Slide your striker through the sleeve and just sit it inside that hole, just like that. You can drop the spring on. It doesn't matter It'll work the same way both ways, right? Get it on there. Then just depress and hold it down. Very, very easy. Actually, I'll give myself a little more room. There we go. These little spring cups, they're small, so don't, make sure you got your glasses on if you need that. And you just put one on each side. Make sure you don't accidentally stack one on top of the other, because that's the only way it might be difficult, is if you do that. Again, ask me how I know. Oh, look, I did it right there. And if that happens, just kind of take it off, or rotate it around, and there. Eventually, you'll get it in there. There you go. It's all ready. However, don't go, oh, cool, I did it, and slide it in. Here's why. If you pop this in, you actually won't be able to get in your safety plunger, because you see it peeking through there. So just reassemble it first and put it down. Then we get our safety plunger. Get our safety plunger, put the spring back in, drop it down in that hole. There's the spring. Drop it inside. Make sure it's springy. It is. Grab your extractor, depress your safety plunger, pop in your extractor, let go of the safety plunger, and it's being captured. And if you took off a little bit of ink, now's a good time to touch it up. Yeah, all right. Now, let's put some spring tension back on that plunger. Or on your extractor, I mean, with the plunger. Put the spring back on top, drop it down inside. There, we're good. Now, grab your striker and pop it down inside. Now, I see a lot of really goofy ways of putting this slide cover plate back on. You don't have to be goofy. It's super easy. So hold it like this in your right hand. Depress this little sleeve that the striker sits inside. Just press it down until you can get the slide cover plate just covering that sleeve, and the spring tension will hold it in place. Flip it around, and now you grab your Glock tool, and all you have to do is press down on this plunger, right? Press down in there enough to slide that cover plate just a little farther forward until it catches it, and then click it into place. That's it. Super easy. I see some guys doing some really weird stuff, but it's as simple as that to get that in there, and then everything is good to go on your slide, right? Let's work on your frame. Let's get our trigger assembly. Here we go. Grab your connector, slide it back where it came from. Boom. And again, there should be a little springiness there. Don't freak out if it's not exact. Find that little spring that reattaches to your trigger bar. Here it is. You remember the little hole is right there. So just locate where that goes. Hook it onto that hole. And then to get it back in, just follow that same, the opposite of the motion you used. So drop it down inside, rotate it away from you, and then back in, and there you go. I'll do that one more time. It's in slow motion. Drop it down in, rotate, and right there. All right. This is a part some people have some problems with, but it's just as simple as that. In and in. Then I like to kind of squeeze this part together. Makes it a little easier when you drop it back into the frame. Make sure your trigger doesn't get in the way. There you go. Drop it back in. Kind of press it down, because when you put that pin in, you got to make sure this is seated properly. All right, let's put in our magazine catch. And again, this was tricky getting out. It's also tricky getting back in, because when you slide it in, it's going to hit that little spring again. So you can either try to grab your screwdriver, grab the spring, and kind of pop it up. Let's see if I get lucky. Pop it up onto the frame. It doesn't feel like I'm going to get lucky today. Wah, wah. Okay, so so the other way is pop it in until you kind of rest against where that spring is. It's easier if you can hold it against your body, but for the camera I won't. And then just kind of get your screwdriver, pull that spring out of the way, and slide it past, and then you can slide it into place. Now, you still haven't locked that spring into position, so you've got it in, but there's no spring tension on it. You've got to grab your screwdriver, push that little spring back into that notch, into the magazine catch, like that. And then you've got your spring tension, right? Now it's back in. All right, grab your leaf spring. Again, look for this 90-degree bend. That's what goes down into the frame. And you'll notice there's usually a little metal piece there that's holding these. It's actually part of these two little rails, right? It goes right down there. You're looking to put this on the back side. Or I guess front side, depending on how you're looking. The side closer to the trigger is where that little 90-degree tab goes. And just kind of rest it down in there. It helps if you have, I keep wanting to steal my wife's tweezers, right? She's got these black Revlon tweezers, and I want to steal them and call them my tactical tweezers, but she would notice, and I would get in trouble. All right, press that down in there, and grab your slide stop. Now, don't put this in backwards. It's possible to put this in backwards. You'll notice there's a little cutout right here that's not on the other side. This is an aftermarket one that's trapezoidal, but even if you have the stock one that's flat, look for this little cutout right here. And just kind of rest it inside. If you push it in too far, you won't be able to depress that leaf spring down. So kind of just rest it inside like that. Get your Glock tool, depress that leaf spring all the way, and then slide your slide lock in enough to kind of make sure you're holding it down, and then just wiggle it through the rest of the way until it clicks. There it is. All right, grab your locking block next. Drop it into place. Press it all the way down. Boy, does this start to look like a gun again, right? Grab your slide stop lever. Slide it into place right there, like that. All right, we are looking really good to go with some pins. So I flip it over. I don't know if you have to or not. It's just tradition for me. I go, top down and from that side to this side, so I do it the opposite order going back. This pin, the trigger housing pin, should go in without any problem at all. If you have any resistance, it means you probably don't have this pressed down enough. So just press down and press in. And you really don't even need your Glock tool to get that in all the way. You might want to, if you want to adjust and get the exact same distance on both sides, you can do that. But you really shouldn't have any trouble with that pin at all. Next is your trigger pin. Press it through, and if you're lucky enough that it goes all the way through the first try, great. This one didn't, because you kind of have to sometimes wiggle this slide stop lever until you find where it's going to line up. Let's go right there, and maybe press your trigger forward and look through. There we go. I didn't have this forward enough, so push your trigger kind of forward, and then it'll slide right in, right? So just kind of, again, wiggle. You don't have to force it. Wiggle things around until it comes through. And there it is. And actually, I felt that click down into that little notch, so you know that's in the right place. And then you've got your locking block pin. This will not go in easy. Watch. You're going to go in and... crap! Oh, I did it wrong. What is it? Here's what's wrong. It's not actually wrong. It just needs to be adjusted. This little spring that's part of your slide stop lever is resting on the bottom of the locking block right here. Little spring. So this is another spot where I think it's easier to have this screwdriver. As you've got this pin ready, pull the pin out, give yourself some room, press down on that spring. Here, I'll try to hold it to the camera. No, I can't. I gotta rest it here. Press that pin down so that you've got a little bit of room just to get that pin over the top of the blade of your screwdriver. And once you get that in there, it'll push through. And then this is held into place, right? This is one where you may have to use your Glock tool to kind of push through and make it even if you're all about making sure it's perfect. Oh man, we could be here all day doing that. There we go. All right, and now it's just a matter of reassembling. You're back to a field strip position. Put your barrel in, put your spring back in. There we go. And then reassemble everything together. Point it in a safe direction and cross your fingers. Oh my goodness. I don't think we broke anything. I think we just took everything out of our Glock and put it back together, and it still works. Oh man, what a relief if we didn't hose your gun. There you go. That is how you do a full detailed disassembly and tinkering inside and reassembly of pretty much any Glock on the planet. So now that you have this knowledge, get out there, get your gun dirty, use it, practice, 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 then come and clean it. You know how to get it all apart now. If you're going to go ahead and do the 25-cent trigger job, I will put a link right here to that to jump to that next video. And if not, please go ahead and subscribe if you like what you see. And I love getting video requests. If you want to see something specific, please let me know. Remember, get out there, practice, practice, practice with your guns. The first time you have to pull that trigger, you don't want that to be the first time you have pulled your trigger. Si vis pacem parabellum, and stay safe out there.